registered in dozens of precincts. Wipe out all voter rolls. If you want to vote, you'll register again with a voter ID, with an ID that's issued by a DMV in your state. Fingerprint, photograph, gotcha. Now we have a chance for a legitimate election. Next step, cut the voter period down from weeks and months. It's called Election Day for a reason. And granted, some people have to work and people have to juggle days. I'd even go for 2, maybe even 3 days. If you can't get to the voting booth in 3 days, you don't want to. The third step, they come out of the caves, they come down from the mountains in Afghanistan and Iraq. Many of them had never been able to vote before in their lives. Now they do. They come down from the hills, their caves. They present their voter ID. They stick their finger in a jar of purple ink. That ink is not coming off in 2 days' time. That person will not be voting again. And only after they get their thumbprint, their thumb inked, only then do they get to go and cast their vote. That is a fair election. Voter ID with a photograph. An election day. An assurance that you won't be finding another precinct. Add to that a 10-year mandatory criminal sentencing for anybody caught in any form of voter fraud, whether it be ballot box stuffing, hiding ballots, jury rigging electronics, or faking numbers. Whatever it is, make it a serious, serious penalty. And several Democrats who have been opposed to voter ID have claimed that it disenfranchises minorities, which is basically saying minorities are too stupid to find the way to a DMV to get an ID. Everybody has ID. You need it to go to a bank. You need it to cash your welfare check. You need it to get on an airplane. You need an ID card to go to the Democratic National Convention. So why are the Democrats disenfranchising minorities? If it was truly disenfranchising them, they wouldn't require ID to go to their own convention. It's not about disenfranchising. The Democrats depend on voter fraud. That's the only way they can win national elections, is by voter fraud. In districts where voter fraud where voter ID has been rolled out in recent years, minorities have actually been proven to come out in greater numbers than they had before. It's almost as if they're saying, why should I bother with so much voter fraud going on? But now that it's being monitored, now that it's at least somewhat honest, yeah, I'll vote. There has not been one instance where voter ID has been shown to disenfranchise minorities. Not one. What has been shown is not one county in the entire United States, not one county that had voter ID laws. Not a single county was won by Obama in 2008 or 2012. Not a single county could he win with voter ID. Now, is that a coincidence? Or was he really, truly dependent on voter fraud? You tell me. A county, a couple of counties, might be a coincidence. But he did not win a single county where people had to prove that they had a right to vote and that they could only vote one time. Next up, Boehner and Pelosi. Boehner has just got to go. This guy, saw him nicknamed on the internet today. They calling him Boehner's, or calling him Barack's bitch. John Barack's bitch Boehner. He has struck a deal with Pelosi. And they're using the Netanyahu speech, where Netanyahu is standing up like a real leader, promising to defend and protect his country, shaming Obama for striking a deal, for trying to strike a deal with the enemy, with the very person that wants to wipe Israel off the map. And they're using the media storm over all of this to cover Obama, or Boehner joining Pelosi in an amnesty vote, trying to pass amnesty. Even though the vast majority of Americans, even the vast majority of legal immigrants, is against immigration. This is purely designed to destroy America, to break the back of America. And Boehner's joining in. Folks, I'm going to take a quick break. I got word that we may have lost audio here. I will be right back. Okay, it looks like our audio issue has been resolved, or had self-resolved. So we are back. The entire amnesty issue is going to destroy America. We have 50 million people out of work, 50 million Americans, lawful, legal citizens looking for work. And Obama is trying to bring in 5 million more illegals and give them amnesty, give them work permits in the next year alone. And another 25 million after that over the next 5 years. This will destroy the American economy more than anything that any of us have seen in our lifetimes. And I've spoken about it many times on this show. These people will be coming in. Obama has already promised. He has already promised employers $3,000 per amnesty employee that they hire. So if an employer decides to hire 5 more people, he can either hire you and your family and your friends, or he can hire these illegals that Obama has smuggled into the country under an illegal amnesty plan, unilaterally, even after Congress turned it down. And the employer will get $3,000 a year for all 5. That's a $15,000 a year tax break. Who do you think they're going to hire? You? At some point on the economic scale, at some point they'll have to hire Americans because skilled workers demand a higher wage. But if they're looking for somebody, for a gardener, if they're looking for somebody in a fast food place, in the kitchen of a restaurant, any number of low-paying, low-skilled jobs will now go to these people. They have for years. But oftentimes companies weren't hiring them for the simple fact that it was illegal. That they had to pay taxes, that they had to show them on the books. And while this may work for construction companies and some other companies, many companies wouldn't do it. Sorry about that. I can't talk and type at the same time. Answering a chat room question. That'll be edited in post. Anyway, but now these companies are getting a free pass. They can put these illegal employees on their books. They can pay their taxes and get the tax break. In fact, they have to pay the taxes if they want to get the tax break. But now they're not risking their own financial health or criminal charges for hiring illegals. So the entire bottom end of our economy is now going to be filled with 25 million illegal aliens that are getting granted amnesty by Barack Hussein Obama. And it will ruin America. It will ruin us completely. But that's what Obama wants. That's clearly what he wants. If you remember, Obama used to, he said teach. He didn't teach. He lectured at Harvard. But he wasn't just a lecturer. He wasn't a lecturer on history. It wasn't English literature. It wasn't anything pro-American. What he lectured on was the Cloward-Piven strategy. Now, Cloward and Piven were two Columbia University professors that back in the 60s wrote this doctrine, which is designed to break the system. Now, it doesn't matter what the system is. It can be welfare. It can be unemployment. It can be virtually anything. You get enough people on the system, and the system will be unsustainable. It happened in the housing market. Before he was elected president, before he was even elected senator, Obama was forcing banks. He would protest as an activist at the banks, forcing the banks to give loans to blacks, to give loans to Mexicans, whether or not they had the ability to repay the loan. Banks would balk. Banks would be threatened. If you don't do this, we will have 100 people protesting that your bank is a racist. They'll be out here on the front of your sidewalk every day. They will be protesting in front of your house. From that point on, the bank would lend anybody a house loan, as long as you were a minority. If you were a minority, it didn't matter if you had a job. It didn't matter if you were employed. If you wanted a loan for a $500,000 house, they basically gave it to you. And when there were enough of these bad loans in the market, the mortgage companies got together with the brokerage companies, then they started bundling them. Rather than let a mortgage go under, they'd bundle these loans all together and they'd sell lots of them. 1,000 at a time would be sold off as a commodity. They wouldn't actually sell it. They would sell points on it. And people would basically bet whether that bundle would go under or not. And when enough people ended up betting against it, it did. And we saw the economic collapse. We saw the housing collapse. That is exactly what this was all about. It was about breaking the system, getting enough people in the system that it was unsustainable. Did you know since Obama came into office, the number of people that are on disability, government disability, has nearly tripled? They lowered all the standards. The same thing with the people on welfare. Obama advertises in Mexico on Mexican TV. Did you know you can come to America and get welfare, to get housing, to get free food for you and your kids? You don't think you can qualify? Just come on over. Try it and see. What country in the world has ever advertised in other countries? Come to us to get free care, to get free education. Come to us to get free medical care. You can't go to Mexico if you don't have proof that you have a job and you won't be dependent on the country. And yet Mexico has colluded with Obama to take their dead weight. And it's breaking America. Every single day. It just gets worse and worse and worse.